I can't stand him anymore. Even the way he breathes drives me insane." That's what my wife said. I stood frozen in the hallway, my hand gripping the doorframe like it was the only thing keeping me from falling apart. She didn't know I was home. Didn't know I had just walked in from a long shift, still in my work boots, dust from the job site clinging to my shirt. And then I heard myself, reduced to the ugliest thing I'd ever been called. "He's a beige box, dull, suffocating, invisible." Each word sliced into me, not because she said it, but because deep down I believed she meant it. 8 years of love, of building a life together, and in one ordinary evening I became something she couldn't wait to escape from. My name is Jack Mercer. I'm 45. I used to believe marriage meant holding each other up, but maybe people only hold on until they find a better place to stand. If you've ever loved someone so much that you lost yourself, stick around. You might hear your own story in mine. Claire wasn't always like this. I remember the first time I saw her, at a friend's backyard cookout. She was laughing at something dumb someone said, the kind of laugh that made everyone else laugh too. Sunlight hit her hair just right. She looked like something out of a memory I didn't know I had. She talked fast, moved with purpose, challenged everything I believed in. And I loved that. God, I loved that. Back then, she said I made her feel safe, steady, like she could finally exhale. I believed in that version of us, so much that I built my whole world around her. I took extra shifts so she didn't have to. I left guys' nights early to be home in time to cook her favorite garlic pasta. I paid attention. I remembered dates. I listened, even when I didn't understand. And for a while, it felt like we were more than just two people. We were one. So how the hell did we get here? And what changed first? Her or me? That Tuesday felt like any other. I came home late, rain still drying on my jacket, boots muddy from another job that ran long. The house smelled like sandalwood and cinnamon, those expensive candles Claire always lit when she was nesting in her own world. I was halfway through loosening my tie when I heard her voice. At first, I thought she was on the phone with Emily, her sister, or maybe a friend. Her tone was light, almost casual, a little tired, a little annoyed. Then I heard my name. Jack just doesn't get it. My hand froze midair. I can't stand him anymore. And that's when the walls of our home, our life, started to thin like paper. She kept going. The way I chewed, the way I breathed, the routine, the safety, the predictability. I stood in the hallway, invisible, listening to the person I had loved for 8 years talk about me like I was a mistake she hadn't figured out how to undo. I wanted to interrupt. But then, she said something that made everything else disappear. "I haven't loved him in years, Em. I don't know how to leave." That was it. Not shouted, not whispered, just said, like a fact she'd accepted, like the weather. I didn't flinch. My body didn't move, but something inside me split wide open. Claire wasn't angry. She wasn't even crying. Her voice was calm, steady, almost relieved. Like saying it out loud finally made it real for her. She called me reliable, predictable, safe. But she didn't want safe anymore. She wanted to feel alive. And apparently, I didn't do that for her. I stood there in the hallway gripping the doorframe, my knuckles white. Everything in me screamed to go in, to confront, to beg, or rage, or collapse. But I didn't do any of that. I turned away, walked quietly down the hall, into our bedroom, grabbed the old black duffel bag from the top shelf of the closet. I didn't pack with thought, just movement. Clothes, socks, toothbrush, done, no goodbye, no fight. I zipped it shut, and I left without making a sound. On my way out, I passed the dresser. There was a photo frame sitting there, our wedding day. Claire in that ivory dress, barefoot in the grass, wind catching her veil. Her arms were wrapped around me, her eyes locked on mine like I was everything she ever wanted. I stared at that version of us, and I felt nothing but shame. Was it ever real? Or was I just a good enough story to believe in, for a while? I looked away. Down the hall, I could still hear her laughing at something on the phone. Light, effortless, as if she hadn't just torn out my ribs with a sentence. I walked slower, let the sound of her voice settle like dust behind me. It would be the last time I heard her speak without knowing what was underneath it. She didn't see me until I stepped into the living room. When she did, her smile dropped. "Jack?" she said, eyes flicking from my face to the bag in my hand. I didn't answer. Not yet, because I wanted her to feel it too. Claire's face twisted, confused, maybe a little guilty. She adjusted her phone, muttered something into it, and hung up. "Where are you going?" she asked, trying to sound calm, but I could hear the wobble underneath. I didn't speak right away. I wanted the silence to stretch. I wanted her to squirm inside it. Her arms crossed, defensive. She shifted her weight from one foot to the other like the carpet had gotten uncomfortable. I watched her, not like a husband, like someone seeing a stranger wear his wife's face. And then I said the only thing I could say without losing control of my voice. "I hope you find what you're looking for, Claire." Her lips parted, but no words came. She looked like she wanted to rewind the last minute, erase what I'd heard, pretend everything was fine again, but I'd heard it, all of it, and now... And I was walking away. I turned. My boots thudded against the hardwood. I reached the door, hand on the knob. I didn't look back. If she wanted to stop me, that was her moment. She didn't take it. The front door clicked shut behind me, quiet like a breath held too long. Outside, the air was cold, but I barely felt it. My body was moving, but my mind, blank, like it had shut down just enough to keep me from collapsing. I tossed the duffel bag into the back seat of my truck. The sound it made, heavy, final. The street was empty. No cars, no wind. Just the hum of distant streetlights and the soft hiss of my own breath, too loud in the silence. I climbed in, gripped the steering wheel, white-knuckled. It wasn't until I started the engine that I realized I had no idea where I was going. No friend's house. They were mostly mutual now. No hotel. That would make it real. Home was no longer a destination. It was a memory I couldn't return to. So I just drove, left turn, then another. Didn't check the signs. Didn't plan. Somewhere out there was distance. And right now, distance was the only thing I knew how to want. The farther I drove, the quieter everything became. Not outside. There was still the engine hum, the occasional street lamp buzzing, the tires rolling across wet asphalt. But inside me, silence. No anger, no panic. Just that low, hollow ringing you hear after something explodes. I didn't check the clock. I didn't check my phone. I just kept my eyes on the road, letting the dark swallow me inch by inch. Every few minutes her voice came back. Not loud, just echoes. "He's safe, predictable. I want to feel alive again." I gripped the wheel harder, like holding it tighter might stop the words from replaying. They didn't. I passed gas stations, closed diners, empty sidewalks, everything asleep except me and the parts of my life I was trying to outrun. And somewhere between the turnpike and the county line, it hit me. I wasn't driving away from Claire. I was driving away from who I had let myself become with her. And I didn't even know that man anymore. I pulled into a parking lot near the old harbor. Didn't plan to. I just ended up there, like muscle memory had taken over. Back when I was younger, I used to come here when I needed to think. Funny how your body remembers what your heart forgets. The ocean stretched out in front of me, black water under a bruised sky, waves slapping the dock, steady and unbothered, a rhythm that didn't care about broken hearts. I turned off the engine, rested my forehead against the steering wheel. And for the first time since hearing those words, I let myself feel it. Not just the betrayal, the humiliation, the shame of loving someone so fully while they slowly folded you into the background. My breath caught. My chest clenched so tight it felt like my ribs would snap. 8 years. 8 years of being someone's anchor, only to realize they'd been drifting away for half of it. No warning, no goodbye. Just a quiet unraveling I hadn't noticed until it was too damn late. And now, all I had left was the sound of waves and an empty driver's seat. My phone lit up on the dashboard, her name glowing in the dark like a warning. Claire. For a second I just stared at it. Then, like a fool, I answered. "Jack?" Her voice was small, hesitant. "Where are you?" I didn't say anything. I let the question hang, let the silence build. She tried again. "Look, I don't know what's going on, but I heard you," I said. She stopped breathing. What? I heard you, Claire. I heard every word. The silence on her end grew heavy. I imagined her standing there barefoot in our living room, phone trembling in her hand, searching for a version of the truth she could say out loud. I didn't mean, don't lie to me. Her breath hitched. She knew. And I knew she knew. It wasn't said in anger. That was the part that haunted me most. She didn't scream those words. She meant them. I didn't wait for another excuse. I hung up. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to accept the truth. She was already gone. I didn't move after hanging up. Just sat there, phone face down on the passenger seat like it had something to be ashamed of. The waves kept hitting the shore, calm, relentless. I hated how steady they were, like they were mocking me. Inside, I was chaos. Outside, nothing moved. I stared out into the dark, fingers still gripping the steering wheel even though the engine was off. Like I needed something to hold on to. Like if I let go, I'd disappear with her. My whole life had been built around that woman. Birthdays, road trips, grocery lists, inside jokes, matching mugs, Sunday mornings in bed. And now, I didn't know what the hell to do with myself. I wasn't Claire's husband anymore. I wasn't anything. I kept waiting for the anger to come, some explosion, some fire to make me feel alive. But there was just silence. A hollow kind that settles in your bones. That makes the air too thick to breathe. And in that silence, I asked myself the question I'd been avoiding. Who am I now that I'm no longer hers? I stayed parked by the harbor for hours. Didn't sleep, didn't eat. Just sat there, trapped between the windshield and a memory I couldn't shut off. Her voice played on repeat in my head. He's comfortable, predictable. I want to feel alive again. It wasn't just what she said, it was how she said it. Like I was an old sweater she kept wearing out of habit, familiar but no longer wanted. I shifted in the seat. My back ached, my knees stiff. The cold from the windows had crept into my joints, but none of that compared to the weight in my chest. It wasn't rage. That would have been easier. Rage burns clean. This was dull, heavy, it dragged. 8 years of love, of giving, of choosing her. And all I got was a private monologue meant for someone else. I glanced at my phone. 7 missed calls, 3 texts, all from her. I didn't open any of them. I already knew what they'd say. Come home. We need to talk. You're being dramatic. Dramatic. She broke us in half. And I was the problem? Dramatic. I read the word again, like I'd misunderstood it the first 5 times. She hadn't just betrayed me, she was minimizing it, packaging 8 years of lies into one dismissive label, as if I'd knocked over a glass of water and stormed out over a mess we could just mop up. I let out a dry laugh. No sound, just air. The phone vibrated again. I didn't look this time, just shoved it under my jacket, like maybe distance could muffle her voice. I leaned back, staring at the roof of the cab, hands still folded across my chest like I was bracing for impact. But the wreck had already happened. I was just sitting in the aftermath, still breathing, still bleeding. And yet, somewhere inside the numbness, something was changing. Something cold, small, but steady. I wasn't ready to forgive, or even understand. But I knew one thing. I wasn't going back. Not to her. Not to that house. Not to the version of myself that mistook her distance for quiet love. She could keep the silence. I'd find something louder. The phone lit up again. Claire. I stared at the screen until it dimmed, then lit up again, persistent, like she could will me into picking up. I should have ignored it. But I didn't. I needed to hear her voice now. Not the voice I'd imagined in my head all night, the one saying things she never said. I wanted to face the real one. I hit accept. She sounded small. Jack? Where are you? Please, just talk to me. Her voice cracked like she'd been crying. But I didn't feel sorry for her. Not anymore. I heard you, Claire, I said. Silence. What do you mean? Last night, you, Emily, the hallway. I was there. A pause. Then a soft, broken, I didn't mean it. Don't do that. Don't lie just because I heard you. The words sat between us like glass on the floor, sharp, thin, waiting to be stepped on. She exhaled. Jack, no. I wasn't ready for her apology. I wasn't ready for her guilt. But I was ready to stop pretending, and that had to be enough. She kept talking. Jack, please. You're blowing this out of proportion. You know I didn't mean it like that. I didn't respond. The longer she spoke, the more obvious it became. She wasn't apologizing. She was managing my reaction, my pain, like it was another problem to clean up before breakfast. You said you haven't loved me in years, I said, my voice low, steady. There's no way to mean that, lightly. She went quiet. For a second I thought maybe the truth had finally hit her, but then she asked, "Can we just talk, in person?" I looked out at the ocean, black and endless, and realized something I hadn't said out loud yet. I don't want to talk, Claire. Her breath caught. I just need to explain. No. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I didn't beg her to take it back. I just pulled the phone from my ear and hung up. No sound after. No screaming. No apology chasing me through the static. Just quiet. And for the first time in 8 years, it felt like mine. After I hung up, I didn't move, didn't cry, didn't scream, just stared out at the harbor, the waves dragging the moonlight back and forth like it meant something. The phone sat on the seat beside me, still warm from the call. I wanted to throw it, break something, bleed just a little to prove this was real. But I didn't. Instead, I let my body sink into the seat. Shoulders slumped, jaw clenched, breath slow and shallow like I was trying not to wake something fragile inside me. Grief doesn't arrive with fireworks. It's quiet, patient. It sits next to you like an old friend and waits until you're too tired to fight it off. I stared at the windshield, fog spreading in the corners like soft rot. My reflection stared back, blank-eyed, unshaven, just tired. Not broken, not yet. But something inside had shifted. I wasn't holding on anymore. Not to her. Not to the version of us I'd kept alive long after she'd stopped feeding it. I was finally letting go. And God, did it hurt. When the sky began to lighten, I knew I couldn't sit there any longer. My legs ached. My mouth was dry. My stomach was hollow and heavy all at once. So I started the truck. Didn't plan a route. Just drove until the highway spit me out near a nowhere town with a flickering diner sign and 3 cars in the lot, the kind of place you don't notice unless you need it. I pulled in, parked. My body moved on instinct, walked through the door, boots scuffing the tile, bell above the entrance giving me away. It smelled like burnt coffee and bacon grease, honest smells, exhausted smells. A waitress with soft eyes and tired hands looked up from behind the counter. She didn't ask questions, just nodded toward a stool. I sat down, hands wrapped around the warm ceramic of a mug I didn't ask for. "You look like you've been driving a while," she said. I nodded, swallowed. "Yeah." She didn't press, just walked away. And for the first time since everything cracked, someone let me exist without needing me to explain. I sat at that counter for what felt like forever. Didn't touch the coffee, just held it. Let the heat bleed into my fingers like it might melt something frozen inside me. Around me, life moved on. Silverware clinked. A radio played some half-forgotten song from the 80s. A trucker near the window laughed too loud at something on his phone. And I just sat there, like I'd been dropped in from another life. I glanced at the menu but couldn't read a word of it. My mind was stuck somewhere between yesterday and nowhere. What do you even eat the morning after your life ends? Eventually, the waitress came back. Didn't ask if I was ready. She just looked at me for a moment and said, "Pancakes or eggs?" I blinked. "Pancakes." She nodded and walked off. That was it. No sympathy, no overstepping. Just someone giving me a moment to choose something small. It felt stupid. It also felt like the most control I'd had in 24 hours. And somehow, that mattered. The doorbell above the diner chimed again. I didn't look. Just kept my eyes on the window, watching sunlight crawl across cracked pavement. Sipped my coffee. Tried to stay in that fragile quiet. Then I heard her voice. "Jack." Everything inside me tightened. I turned slowly. Claire stood just inside the doorway. Jeans, sweatshirt, hair pulled back like she hadn't slept, her arms crossed like she was cold or bracing. For a second, the whole place dimmed. Conversations faded, the clink of dishes muffled. It was just her and me. I didn't move, didn't speak, just stared at her, half expecting her to vanish if I blinked long enough. She stepped forward, cautious. "You always drive when you're upset," she said softly. "I figured you'd end up somewhere quiet." Her voice tried to sound casual, like she knew me, but she didn't. Not anymore. Not the man sitting here. Not the man who'd left. She glanced around. Didn't expect a diner, though. I didn't answer. I just kept my hands around the mug and waited to see what she'd do next. Claire hovered beside the counter like she wasn't sure if she was welcome. She wasn't, but I nodded toward the stool next to mine. "Go ahead," I said, voice flat. "Explain." She hesitated, clearly surprised I offered. But she sat, hands folded, posture tense. She looked smaller in this light, less certain, like the truth she'd let slip was now too big to hold. "I didn't mean for you to hear that," she said finally. "I was venting. I raised an eyebrow, waited, frustrated. I took a slow sip of coffee, let the pause stretch long enough to feel like judgment. Venting? Yes. She leaned in slightly, trying to find a softer edge in me. "Jack, every couple has rough patches. We say things we don't always mean." I tilted my head. "How long has our rough patch been going on?" Her lips parted, but no words came. I nodded. That was all the answer I needed. "You said you haven't loved me in years, Claire." I didn't raise my voice. "That's not frustration. That's clarity." Claire dropped her gaze. She rubbed her hands together like she was cold, but I knew that fidget. She was stalling. "I was tired, Jack," she murmured. "Overwhelmed. You don't understand what it's been like for me." I leaned back slightly, my voice still calm. "Then help me understand." She looked up, surprised. "Help me understand what part of I haven't loved him in years was supposed to be harmless." Claire flinched. "I was just, I don't know, talking. I didn't think, you didn't think I'd hear." I shook my head, set my mug down, slow and deliberate. "Claire, I've spent years trying to guess what you really meant, translating silences, reading between sighs, and I was wrong every time." I met her eyes. "But this, I finally heard you, not filtered, not softened, just the truth." She pressed her lips together. No argument, no clever response. Only guilt, and maybe fear. For once I didn't fill the silence for her. I let her sit in it, let her feel the weight of finally being understood, exactly as she was. Claire swallowed hard. "I didn't mean to hurt you." That old line again. I let it sit between us, untouched. She looked away, fingers tracing the rim of a sugar packet, folding and unfolding it like it might rescue her from the moment. I stayed still. "I just didn't know how to say it," she added. "So you didn't," I said. "You just let me keep loving you like nothing was broken." She looked up sharply. "It wasn't like that." It was exactly like that. My tone never rose. No edge, no drama. That seemed to rattle her more than if I'd screamed. She shifted in her seat. "You always act like everything's fine, Jack. Like if we just go through the motions, we'll be okay." I stared at her, steady. "Because I believed in us. That's what you do when you love someone. You try." Her face flickered. Shame, maybe. Or just the discomfort of being seen clearly. She looked down at her hands, and for once I didn't rush to comfort her. I let her sit in the version of herself she'd tried so hard to hide. I leaned forward slightly, resting my arms on the counter. Claire's hands were still, fingers now tangled together like she was holding her own wrist in place. "Let me ask you something." She looked up, wary. "If I hadn't overheard you, would you have ever told me?" Her lips parted, then froze. That pause was everything. She didn't look angry or defensive. She looked caught. I held her gaze, not with bitterness, just truth. "Would you have told me the love was gone? That you hadn't felt anything in years? Or would you have kept playing house until one of us just faded?" Her eyes watered, just barely. Then she looked away. Didn't say yes, didn't say no. and that told me everything. I felt something twist in my chest, but it wasn't pain this time, it was clarity. You weren't stuck, Claire. You were comfortable, and comfort is easy when someone else is doing all the feeling. Her jaw trembled, but I didn't soften. She could cry if she wanted. She was finally facing the cost of her silence. Claire didn't answer, didn't have to. Her silence was loud enough to drown a church. I leaned back, exhaled slowly. The kind of breath that scrapes your chest on the way out. That's what hurts most, you know? She blinked, eyes glassy. Not that you stopped loving me. That you let me keep going. I looked down at my hands, calloused, cracked from years of building things, fixing things. I'd tried to fix us, over and over, while she stood there knowing it was already gone. You let me plan anniversaries, bring you flowers, book that trip to Oregon you never really wanted to take. You smiled in pictures, held my hand in front of our friends, said I love you with a voice that didn't mean it. Her lip trembled. You could have left. You could have let me grieve this 2 years ago. But you didn't. I looked at her then, not as my wife, but as the person who chose to stay miserable and let me love a ghost. Claire's face broke. She opened her mouth, maybe to explain, maybe to beg, but nothing came out. So I filled the silence. I'm not angry. That seemed to surprise her. I'm tired. Tired of being the stable one, the steady one, the one you lean on, complain about, depend on, but never really see. She looked away. You want to feel alive again, Claire? She nodded slowly. Then go chase it. But don't look back at me when it doesn't feel as soft as I did. I picked up my coffee, drank the last cold sip, set it down gently. I'm not your safe place anymore. Her breath caught. There it was, the fear. Not of losing me, but of losing the version of me who stayed, the man who tried, forgave, waited. I'm not going to be your quiet option. Or your fallback. I stood. She reached for my arm, but I stepped back. No anger, no drama. Just a quiet truth that filled the space where our marriage used to live. It's already over. Claire's hand hovered in the space I'd just stepped out of. She looked up at me, voice barely above a whisper. I don't want to lose you. For a second I didn't breathe. That line, it used to undo me. It used to mean something. But now, it just sounded like fear. Not of losing me. Of losing the comfort I brought. The version of life where I absorbed the cracks so she didn't have to feel them. I met her eyes. You don't want to lose me, I said. But you don't love me. She didn't respond. Just pressed her lips together like maybe silence could soften the truth. You want the version of me who stays, who forgives, who picks up the pieces you dropped. But you don't want me. She looked like she might cry, but I didn't reach for her. Not anymore. That reflex had died somewhere between the hallway and this diner. I knew her tells, the way she twisted her ring when she lied, the way her eyes darted when she withheld, and God help me, I still noticed them all. Claire finally broke the silence. I don't know what we have anymore, Jack, but I don't want it to end like this. I stared at her. So there it was, not love, not remorse, just fear of the mess. You don't want it to end like this, I repeated slowly, because it's uncomfortable, because it makes you the one who let go first. She flinched. Not because you want me back. She didn't argue. That told me everything. I stepped away from the counter, arms crossed, not defensive, just done. You're not scared of losing me, Claire. You're scared of what it says about you if I stop waiting. Her fingers tightened around the sugar packet again, crushed it flat. You don't miss me. You miss having someone who stood still while you drifted. She looked up sharply, wounded, but I didn't soften. I was your safety net, not your partner. And I won't be your easy ending. Her eyes filled finally, but I felt nothing. Not cold, not cruel, just free. Claire opened her mouth again, one last plea forming on her lips. Jack, can we at least— No, I said, cutting her off. We can't. Not this time. Not after everything. Her face fell, and just like that she looked small, not broken, not tragic, just smaller than the pedestal I'd built for her. I turned toward the exit, walked past the coffee counter, the jukebox, the sleepy trucker now watching us like a movie he hadn't meant to start. I pushed open the diner door. The morning air hit me, cool, sharp, cleaner than it had any right to be. I stepped outside, stopped at the driver's side of the truck, hand on the handle, but I didn't get in, not yet. I stared at my reflection in the window. The man looking back wasn't the one who had begged for her attention. He wasn't hollow. He was tired, but he was awake. Behind me, the diner door creaked. Claire's voice followed. "Please, don't walk away." I didn't turn around, because I already had. I turned halfway, just enough to face her shadow on the gravel, not her eyes. She stood a few feet away, arms crossed tight, like that could hold her together. "Why are you making this so final?" she asked. Her voice cracked. "We can talk. We can figure it out." I exhaled through my nose, looked up at the sky, gray-blue, wide, uncaring. "Figure out what?" I said softly. "How to pretend for 5 more years." She flinched. "How to make it easier for you to stay in something you already checked out of?" She swallowed hard. "I never wanted to hurt you." "But you did," I said, "long before last night." "You think this is about what you said, Claire?" I turned to her fully now. "This is about every year you looked at me like furniture. Every dinner where you nodded through my words like background noise. Every kiss that felt like obligation." She opened her mouth, closed it again. There was nothing left to defend, and I had nothing left to wait for. Claire looked at me, her face pale, jaw tight, tears brimming but not falling. "I wasn't trying to be cruel," she whispered. I nodded slowly. "No, you were trying to be comfortable." Her eyes flashed, defensive. "And what about you, Jack? You think you were perfect? You think I was the only one unhappy?" I gave a hollow laugh. "No, I know I wasn't perfect. But I wasn't lying to you. I loved you out loud." Her mouth opened, then shut. Nothing came. "You want to talk about unhappiness? Fine, I felt it too. But I didn't turn it into distance. I didn't turn it into resentment. I didn't talk about you like a mistake behind your back." I stepped closer, not threatening, just final. "You were unhappy, so you stayed silent. I was unhappy, so I tried. And maybe that's the difference." She stood there, shrinking in her silence. This wasn't vengeance. It wasn't cruelty. It was the truth she'd spent years avoiding. And finally, it didn't belong to her anymore. It belonged to me. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The diner hummed behind us, plates clinking, a song playing faintly, something old and sweet, out of place in a moment like this. Claire finally looked up at me. "So what now?" Her voice was thinner than I'd ever heard it. I looked at her. Really looked. The woman I had built my world around. The person I had measured my days by. She wasn't cruel. She wasn't evil. She was just human, flawed, scared, lost in her own way. But here's the thing no one tells you. Sometimes the people we love most are just passing through. "Now I figure out who I am without you," I said. She blinked, stunned by how simply I said it. "You were everything," I added, and maybe that was the problem. She looked like she wanted to cry. I didn't stop her, because this was what truth felt like. Not fire, not fury, just the quiet closing of a door that should have been shut a long time ago. Claire's voice cracked. "So this is really it?" I nodded. "Yeah, this is it." She stepped closer, desperation flickering in her eyes. "What if I realize too late? What if I want to try now?" I smiled, sad, not cruel. "Claire, I spent years waiting for you to want me. You don't get to decide now that I'm walking away." She reached out, fingertips grazing my sleeve. "I was scared," she said. "I didn't know how to leave, but I didn't want to lose us." "You already had," I said gently. "You just hadn't admitted it yet." She dropped her hand, finally understanding. Not because I convinced her, but because she saw it in me, that I wasn't hers anymore. "I'm done waiting to be chosen," I said. "I'm choosing myself now." Her tears came quiet, the kind that carry truth, but they didn't undo me. Not this time, because for the first time in years, her regret didn't change a thing. I slung my bag over my shoulder, the last weight I'd carry from that house. Claire stood frozen near the diner door, watching me like someone waking from a dream too late. "I filed the divorce papers," I said. "You should have received them by now." She nodded, voice caught in her throat. "I thought you might have sent Marcus." "He offered," I said, "but this was mine to finish." I walked past her, no hesitation this time. Her perfume followed me for half a step, then vanished, like memory evaporating in sunlight. She turned as I reached the threshold. "Wait, Jack." I paused halfway through the door. She stepped closer, softer now. "I've been thinking about what I said, about what I did. I was wrong." I looked at her, really looked, and I felt nothing. No fire, no ache, not even resentment, just a deep, settled knowing. "It doesn't matter if you were wrong," I said. "It matters that it was true." She flinched, tears brimming. But I walked out anyway, and every step away felt lighter than the one before. The sun was high now, sky clean, sky, not a cloud in sight. I opened the truck door and tossed my bag onto the passenger seat, like setting down the last box after moving out of a life I didn't live in anymore. The engine rumbled to life, steady and low, like it had just been waiting on me to be ready. As I pulled away from the curb, I glanced in the rearview mirror. Claire stood in the window, one hand on the glass, watching me go. 2 months ago, that image would have broken me. Today, it just looked like closure, not victory, not revenge, just truth and peace. I didn't speed off, didn't blast music, didn't even blink. I turned the corner, and her face disappeared with the house behind me. And for the first time in a long time, I noticed how the air felt, clean, wide, full of things that hadn't yet happened. I rolled the window down, let the breeze hit my face. It didn't fix anything, but it was a start. The drive to Marcus's house took hours, flat roads, open sky, the kind of stillness that doesn't ask questions. I didn't turn on the radio, just let the tires hum beneath me and watch the world roll past like a movie I wasn't in yet. When I pulled into his driveway, the sun was dipping behind the trees. Gold streaks across the hood of my truck. Warm air, quiet crickets starting to hum. Marcus was already outside, leaning against his old Ford, arms crossed. He didn't wave, didn't smile big. He just looked at me, tired eyes, steady presence, and nodded. "Good to see you, man." That's all he said, and it was enough. No, what happened? No, how bad is it? He just handed me a cold beer and sat beside me on the porch. Two brothers side by side saying nothing. The cicadas filled the silence. A dog barked somewhere in the distance. Porch wood creaked beneath our boots. It wasn't healing, not yet, but it was still. And after everything, stillness felt like a miracle. We sat in silence until the sky turned navy blue and the bottle in my hand was empty. Marcus didn't push. He never did. But eventually he asked one question. "Do you regret it?" I didn't answer right away. I watched the fireflies blink across his backyard, listened to the wind brush through the trees like it had something to say. Then I nodded, slow. "I regret not seeing it sooner." He tilted his head, waited. "But leaving?" I added. "No. I think it's the first thing I've done for me in a long time." He didn't smile, just nodded once like he understood. Maybe he did. Because the truth is, most men don't leave when they're hurt. We stay. We swallow it. We call it loyalty, even when it kills something in us. But not this time. This time I left, not to hurt her, not to prove a point, but because I finally realized I was worth more than being tolerated. And for once, I wasn't sorry. 2 months later, I returned. Not for her. Not for us. Just to pick up the last of my things. Marcus had offered to go in my place, but I needed to do this myself. Quietly. Without ceremony. I pulled up to the curb and stared at the house for a minute. Same paint. Same porch light. But it didn't feel like mine anymore. I unlocked the door with a key that still worked, stepped inside, and was hit with the faint scent of sandalwood, her candles. It used to feel warm, familiar. Now it felt like someone else's life wearing my old jacket. I moved through the rooms quickly, grabbed a box of books, a few records, my dad's watch. That was it. Everything else could stay. Every photo, every throw pillow we argued about, every trace of the version of me who bent to keep it all together. I zipped up the duffel bag, slung it over my shoulder, and that's when I heard the door open behind me. Her voice broke the silence. "Jack?" Her voice stopped me in the hallway. "Jack?" I turned. Claire stood in the doorway of her bedroom. Her hair was shorter, her clothes different. She looked new, like she'd rearranged herself since I left. But to me, she was a ghost wearing old skin. "I saw your truck," she said softly. "I didn't expect you. Thought maybe you'd send Marcus." "He offered," I said. "But this was mine to finish." She nodded, arms crossed. Same stance she used when she was unsure but pretending she wasn't. I waited. She stepped closer. "I've been thinking," she said, eyes glistening. "About what I said. What I did. I was wrong. 2 months ago, those words would have cracked me wide open. Now, they sounded like echoes. Late. Faint. I studied her face. One I had memorized. One I used to trace with my fingers at night. And I felt nothing. No ache. No longing. Not even bitterness. "It doesn't matter if you were wrong," I said quietly. "What matters is that it was true." Claire's eyes filled, but she didn't cry. Not yet. "What if I don't want it to be true anymore?" she whispered. "What if I realized what I lost?" I looked at her for a long time, not searching for sincerity, just saying goodbye with my eyes. "Then I'm sorry," I said gently. "But I'm not the same man I was 2 months ago. I'm not the man who would wait around for you to decide if I was enough." She reached for my arm. I let her hand land, then stepped back. A tear slipped down her cheek. "So this is really it?" I nodded once. "This is really it. You had all of me, for years. But now I'm giving that to someone else, me." Her lips parted, searching for something to say that could pull me back. But there was no version of this where I returned. I walked past her, through the doorway of a life that no longer fit. And this time I didn't look back, because I didn't have to. The road stretched out ahead of me, long, open, unapologetic. I didn't know where it led, didn't need to. Because for the first time in almost a decade, I wasn't chasing someone else's version of happiness. I wasn't trying to fix, to prove, to hold together something that had already come undone. I was just moving forward. The truth? You don't always leave because you stopped loving someone. Sometimes you leave because you finally love yourself enough not to stay. I wasn't angry at Claire anymore. I wasn't trying to make her regret it. I just didn't belong in that life. And maybe I never had. We think love means staying, but real love, especially for yourself, sometimes means walking away, even if your voice shakes, even if your heart still wants to turn around. I rolled down the window, let the air fill my lungs. It didn't fix everything, but it reminded me I was still here, still alive, still mine. And if you've ever felt like you were disappearing in someone else's story, maybe it's time you write your own.